Wildlife toxicology of pesticides. Can we track the effects to population level and beyond? After the popularity of Rachel Carson's Silent Spring in the 1960s, many became concerned about the poisoning of their environment due to pesticide misuse. At first, research took place that was long-term observational studies that mainly focused on acute wildlife mortality. These surveillance programs didn't take off in any country, which led to very limited data from that source of research. More effective research happened through experimental methods, which linked laboratory, mesocosm, and field experiments. It was crucial that the experimentation be thorough and diverse as to understand pesticides more comprehensively. There was a shift in focus more recently to researching specific insecticides, such as organophosphates, pyrethroids, and neonicotinoids. More recently in the industry, there has been a withdrawal from highly toxic chemicals, and current pesticides aim for efficiency against pests while minimizing harm to non-targeted species as a result of this research.
Pesticides are made to control and eliminate harmful organisms that threaten the productivity of agricultural processes like growing crops. And pesticides aim to eliminate these pest species while minimizing the effects that these pesticides have on non-target species such as wildlife or pollinators in the area. And as far as research goes, there's been a shift from acute to chronic studies, meaning the effects of using pesticides long-term is being studied as opposed to short-term. And these studies include studying the effects of pesticides on behavior, reproduction, endocrine disruption, and immunotoxicity in non-target species. And the unintended effects of pesticides refers to the consequences that the non-target species and wildlife face when they are exposed to pesticides. And so even though harming these organisms was not a goal of pesticides being used, it has to be studied because it does affect them. And there are many different unintended effects. Like birds that are exposed to pesticides can develop neurotoxicity, and that can lead to a bunch of impairments such as like with their foraging, their learning, and their chick rearing. And the combination of those factors is going to lead to mass deaths within the population, so it's going to have a very negative effect.
Population level effects of pesticides. What populations are affected? Birds, fish, amphibians, rodents, and certain mammals, like humans, are all affected. These populations are affected due to the exposure of the chemicals, and this is either through direct exposure, consumption of contaminated food, or bioaccumulation. So these populations are all affected in different ways, and for example, mammals have increased mortality, birds have mass deaths and population decline, reptiles have affected population parameters, amphibians have population decline, fish have mass deaths, insects and other invertebrates have decreased colony size and mortality incidence, and plants and fungi have impaired photosynthesis and altered metabolism. All of these effects are very impactful. All of these populations are very important in maintaining ecological balance, like controlling pests. So when such effects happen, ecosystems become vulnerable.
Community and ecosystem level effects of pesticides. To begin with, we are going to define community. Community is a group of interacting species living in the same area. As for ecosystem, is a much broader system that includes both the community and its physical environment interacting together as a whole unit. On to the next slide, we're going to be talking about the effects of pesticides. One quote I found very fascinating from the passage that we read was, some of these pesticide effects at the sub-individual or individual levels have been casually or publicly linked to their consequences in the populations, meaning that this could affect the populations. As for another effect of pesticides was increased immunosuppression, which leads to higher infection rates. Another one was affected pest control, causing ecosystem imbalances. Not only that, but pesticide exposure can increase pesticide loads in amphibians like frogs, which leads to higher disease rates. Lastly, but not least, food webs were affected due to the removal of prey and competitors, affecting the species, abundance, and diversity.
The effects of global change has many consequences when it comes to pesticides, according to Figure 3 shown on the left. For example, populations have not yet adapted to higher temperatures, may be more likely to pesticides. These global changes may include moisture or precipitation in the air, natural toxins, changes in weather patterns, biodiversity, and human adaptations. Microevolution is changes to a number of genes within a population in a short period of time. Solutions within future research on the effects of pesticide toxicology and microevolution will likely be focused on various pesticide mixtures. Changes in geographic range due to infectious diseases and direct and indirect pesticide effects among increasing biological complexity. Future research will also detect factors such as vulnerability and climate change interactions of pesticides.